Remember the days when NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys ruled the charts? The late 90s and early 2000s were a golden age for boy bands. They were everywhere, on TV, in magazines, and on the radio. But behind the glitz and glam, some major scandals were a-brewing. Buckle up as we take a trip down memory lane and uncover the juicy details that rocked the music world. These seemingly perfect groups often hid dark secrets behind their washboard abs, killer dance moves, and charming smiles. We're talking whispers of grooming, sexual assault, Ponzi schemes, fist fights. I'm telling you, this one will leave your jaw on the floor and have you wondering what was so golden about the boy band era. So grab onto something and brace yourself for a wild ride into the scandals that rocked your favorite boy bands. Fear hung heavy in the Jackson household thanks to Joe Jackson, the father of the legendary Michael Jackson and manager of the Jackson 5. Joe has been a subject of much controversy over the years, particularly regarding his parenting style. While he's always denied beating his kids,
well, spanking, you just spank them a little bit with your hand or something, let them know that's wrong what they're doing. A beating come from the slavery days. When they used to beat the slaves, because when the slaves tried to run for freedom or something, they grabbed them and beat them and tortured them, And they beat them with just about anything they could get their hands on, put scars on them and all that type of thing. And that's the difference between beating, that's where it came from in the slavery days by the slave masters.
And that's not a spanking. And that's not discipline.
That's not discipline, that's not a spanking.
Michael and his siblings have painted a different picture.
Well, I didn't have it that hard because he used me as the example. It was like, do it like Michael. And he practiced us with a belt in his hand. And if you miss a step, expect to be...
Apparently, Joe had a habit of using a belt to discipline his children during rehearsals.
No, more than a belt.
What else would he use to hit you with?
Iron cords. Whatever's around. Throw you up against the wall hard as he could.
According to Michael, missing a step could mean a painful smack.
And your father would be holding a belt in his hand. Is that what you just said?
Yes. And he would tear you up if you missed. And so we, not only were we practicing, we were nervous rehearsing because he sat in a chair and he had this bell in his hand. And if you didn't do it the right way, he would tear you up, really get you. And I got it a lot of times, but I think my brother Marlon got it the most because he had a hard time at first. And he tried so hard. And it was always... do it like Michael, but the others were very nervous, and I was nervous too, because he was tough.
It's no wonder Michael struggled with anxiety for years.
Terrified, I can't tell you. I don't think he realizes to this day how scared. I mean scared. So scared that I would regurgitate.
You would vomit?
Mm-hmm.
When would you vomit? What would produce that sort of reaction in you?
His presence.
While they achieved worldwide fame, the emotional toll was immense. The big question is, was Joe Jackson a loving father who simply used physical punishment as a disciplinary tool? Or was he a strict disciplinarian whose methods crossed the line into abuse? It's a debate that's been raging for years, and the truth may never be fully known. From one actual father to a father figure, the mastermind behind the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, Lou Pearlman, was equal parts genius and a fraud. A businessman who saw a golden opportunity in boy bands.
Learned that they sold $200 million in record sales and $800 million in touring and merchandising. I said, I'm in the wrong business.
He knew teenage girls were obsessed with heartthrobs and figured he would create a formula for success. Lou's goal was to churn out boy band after boy band, raking in coins. He believed that as long as there were teenage girls, there would always be a market for his manufactured pop stars. In fact, he famously said, "Boy bands will stop when God stops creating teen girls." He built the Backstreet Boys from scratch and, well, it really didn't take off in the United States, but they did in Germany. Lou Pearlman was a real mastermind. He didn't just create one boy band, he created two. And guess what? Did it on purpose. His goal was to create a potential rivalry between the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, just like Coke and Pepsi. Talk about playing the game. In his memoir, he even admitted to his sneaky strategy.
If Backstreet turns out to be a dominant brand like Coke, someone is going to come along and create a Pepsi. We might as well beat them to it.
And so, Lou created Pepsi, aka NSYNC, and they really took off in the US while the Backstreet Boys were blowing up in Germany. Lou Pearlman wasn't just a music manager, he was a master manipulator. He knew how to play the game and would do anything to keep his boy bands under control. He would often act like a father figure, making the boys feel like they owed him everything.
We thought Lou Pearlman was our big papa.
But behind the scenes, he was a total snake. He would use that sense of loyalty to his advantage, squeezing every last penny out of the bands. It was a classic case of use 'em and lose 'em. When NSYNC finally hit it big, they thought they were going to be rolling in dough. But guess what? Lou Pearlman was basically lining his pockets with their hard-earned cash. Imagine working your butts off and then finding out your manager pocketed millions while you got nothing. They sold over 10 million records and only got a measly $10,000 check.
I remember this one trip to Los Angeles I was so excited about because Lou was hyping up the fact that this was going to be our first check presentation. And at this point, we've worked so hard and we've gotten zero. It's all kind of accumulated and they're just going to give it all to us in one little batch in a check. And he takes us to Lowry's, a very lavish dinner. You know, Lou loved those big family dinners. We had all our family there.
He had all the parents to come. At this time, they had sold over 10 million records. I was just kind of doing the math in my head, but I kept thinking, okay, if it's just $1 million, divide that up by 5, and Lance is going to get $200,000.
You start thinking in your head, like, what could it be? Is it 6 figures? Is it $1 million? Like, what am I about to, fall into right now? My life is about to change.
And I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is going to get crazy. A lot of money now, this is going to be nuts.
I was on cloud nine. I was on top of the world at that point. I mean, we thought it was as big as we could possibly get. I open up the envelope, I see the check, and oh my gosh. My heart sunk, and I couldn't believe the number I was looking at.
The reaction from everybody when they saw their checks was just astonishment.
The check was $10,000. And not to sound ungrateful, because $10,000 is a lot of money. But when you compare it to how many hours that we had put in to this group for years, it didn't even touch minimum wage at all.
The boys understandably felt betrayed, like they had been completely taken advantage of by Pearlman. On the other hand, the Backstreet Boys were also only getting a measly $300,000 collectively in their early years. Can you imagine all the rehearsals, dance routines, and everything involved in being a successful boy band, and then having to split $300,000 5 ways while Pearlman was raking in a cool $10 million? It's enough to make your head spin. The boys later called their contracts indentured servitude, and it's hard to disagree.
And we started looking at our bank accounts, and it's just like, something isn't adding up. Lou's getting paid, the promoters are getting paid. Some of the guys couldn't pay for their car payment or couldn't pay for their apartment.
Basically, we thought it was like a normal thing, to get food money, and then we thought essentially at the end of the road there would be some magical big check. When you're working 18 hours a day, just to get to sleep that night, you don't have time to look over contracts and make sense of things.
It was so insulting. I felt like someone had punched me in the face.
Of course, the boys weren't going to stand for that. They sued him for fraud in 1998 and eventually reached a settlement. But it wasn't cheap. They had to shell out a whopping $64 million in legal fees and settlements, which they had to split between themselves and other parties involved. You want to sit tight because there's more. Lou Pearlman was a total financial mess. He was a financial genius at spending money. Even though he was managing some of the biggest boy bands around, he somehow managed to lose more than he made. It's like he had a black hole in his pocket. To keep the party going, he started a Ponzi scheme, basically using the boys' fame to trick people into investing in his get-rich-quick scheme. Pearlman was living the high life on borrowed time. The lawsuit brought his shady business practices to light and caught the attention of the law. Regulators started digging into his finances and found that he was taking money from investors and promising them huge returns.
Initially, he was selling stock in a company called Transcontinental Airline Services, Inc. And the representation always was that this was a company that provided all sorts of airline services, totally fictitious.
This whole Ponzi scheme and this criminal activity that he's done, he's been doing since the 80s. He's been fooling people for a long time. All this music and the bands that he helped was all on the backs of money that was stolen. And then we become that validation for him. Once he had a successful group like us or Backstreet, now he could say, look at this. See, this is what I can do. Give me more money, and just use that to take advantage of more people.
But in reality, he was just pocketing the cash.
Definitely used his bands to catapult investment in all of his transcontinental companies.
In 2008, he was convicted of running a massive Ponzi scheme, swindling investors out of hundreds of millions of dollars. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. But before he could serve his full sentence, died in prison in 2016. There were also whispers flying carelessly around about Pearlman allegedly displaying predatory behavior. Several former band members and associates claimed he was making inappropriate advances and even engaging in some seriously creepy behavior.
Mike Cronin, who worked for Transcontinental Records at the time, pulled us aside and said, look, here's the deal. There's rumors about Lou. We don't know. It's unconfirmed. He might have a thing for boys. Lou would come into the rehearsal room and he'd be like, hey, guys, let's see your abs. Take off your shirts. This kind of stuff, where it feels like, oh, maybe this is part of having a mentor of a band who wants to make sure you're in good shape, because that's what he would always say. You got to be able to sell teen magazines. You got to be in good shape. Take off your shirt. Let me see your abs.
I don't know too much about Lou's private life and what he was into. As a closeted person, I always just thought he was gay, and that was the reason he would act so weird sometimes. He would give you a massage, so he was very touchy-feely. He was just a very touchy guy. It always felt a little, okay, I think I know what you're doing.
We kind of had people around us saying, hey, watch out for this behavior. It's kind of been out there that this may or may not be happening, and so you kind of knew what to look for. And I'll never forget the one time I was alone with Lou. We go back and he calls me in my room and he's like, I want to talk to you about your performance. And so against the advice of a lot of these other people, I go up to his room, and by the way, the whole time he was very good at playing on your desire to be successful. And he would say things to me like, you're the Justin Timberlake, you're the Nick Carter, but you got to stay in shape, man. He takes it another step further and says, I minored in physical therapy in college. I can give your muscles a pump without you even working out. Come here, let me rub your muscles. So then it kind of starts turning into this weird massage. And then all the red flags start popping up like, oh, this is kind of what everybody's been talking about.
Tim Christopher of boy band Take 5, which Pearlman also managed, said Pearlman jumped into bed with him and another boy wearing only a towel, which fell off during the encounter. Talk about uncomfortable. Another former associate said Pearlman would make suggestive comments and implied he could help young men practice for future encounters with investors.
I got to be really close with Rich Cronin because his brother Mike was our manager, and LFO came out on tour with us. Rich was one of the members that actually lived in Lou's house with him at one point. I feel I can tell this story because Rich went on Howard Stern and told it. He tells me that Lou basically comes in and he's all worked up and he's like, you know, I got this big opportunity for you guys in Europe.
He's punching his table. He's really acting good. He goes,
this could be the make it or break it moment for LFO. This guy over in Europe who has this big recording company.
He goes, all he wants to do is touch your penis.
Oh.
And I don't know what happens after that. Just pretty much touch your penis and, you know, play with it.
That's how they do business over there. I don't want you to get freaked out. We got to do what's right for the band. And so I'm going to let you practice on me so that we don't go over there and blow this deal.
And guess what else? In college, I was a psychology minor. I'm going to help you get through it mentally. He goes, well, think about it, guys. Don't say this. Don't you fucking tell anyone.
Some former band members and associates have defended him, saying they never saw anything inappropriate.
I had no proof of that. I never saw anything like that.
I never witnessed anything happening with him and young boys. I mean, I heard a lot of stories.
My opinion of Lou being a sexual predator is that that is not true. That is so foul. He would come up to you and he'd teach you how to do push-ups. He taught me how to do diamond push-ups so I could build my chest. And he's a pedophile? Shut up about that, guys.
Talk about a dark side to the glitz and glam of the music industry. After getting screwed over by Lou Pearlman, NSYNC managed to bounce back and keep making hits. I mean, no strings attached to anyone, but the whole saga really opened everyone's eyes to the ugly side of the music business. Their lawsuit also helped other artists realize they needed to be more careful about their contracts. The Backstreet Boys also had to rebuild from the ground up. While it seemed like the boy band craze was starting to die down, their days were numbered. These dudes were made of tougher stuff. They switched up their sound, got a little more mature, and kept touring. They even landed a Vegas residency, proving they still had what it takes. One member of the group, Nick Carter, has however been in the news for all the wrong reasons. He's struggled with drugs, and so did his younger brother, Aaron. But that's not all. There are some serious allegations floating around about Nick. Multiple women accused him of sexual assault, including Melissa Schumann from Dream. She claims he groomed and manipulated her when she was just 18. Refusing to back down, Nick countersues Melissa, calling her claims outrageous and demanding millions. It's a total mess, and everyone's wondering what really happened. This is definitely not the kind of drama we want from our childhood pop idols. Also, from the stables of Lou Pearlman, Take 5 band member Robbie Williams was a total wild child, drinking and doing drugs like there was no tomorrow. To the disappointment of many female fans, Robbie left Take 5 and launched a solo career.
Sit, as they called it. I was high on cocaine. I just thought I was the best thing ever and I needed to go and sell 80 million records. Of course, is what I went and did.
After leaving Take That, Robbie's wild ways only got worse. He got hooked on prescription drugs, popping pills like candy. He spills the tea about his wild partying days.
Rested in my mind. You know, my mind went to hell and my psychosis did. And it happened quite quickly. Unfortunately, the golden era of using for me dried up very, very quickly.
Things got so bad that he almost lost his solo career and had to check himself into rehab. He's revealed how Elton John stepped in to save his life. Seems like Robbie was going through a rough patch, and Elton was like, "Hey dude, you need help." After getting clean, he still struggled with depression and anxiety, turning to drugs to cope. Robbie has since been sober, but he's been honest about the challenges of staying clean. Apparently, when he stopped using drugs, all his deep-seated problems came bubbling to the surface, leaving him feeling like a total wreck. Luckily, his fans and family have been there for him every step of the way, offering support and encouragement.
You're surrounded by love, then you will be loved. And if you feel loved, then you're whole.
That's what I've learned from going to therapy.
It's been a tough road for Robbie, but he's come a long way. And while he's still dealing with mental health issues, he's proving that even the biggest stars can overcome their demons.
Name me one famous young person that's done really well mentally later on in life. Name me one. They don't exist. You know, like fame is a illness.
While Robbie was a hot mess when he was with Take 5 and likely got kicked out because of it, it all seems like child's play compared to Heartthrob's B2K. Yep, it turns out their friendship was as fragile as their music. Their tight harmonies couldn't hide the cracks in their friendship. According to Omarion, the group's breakup was the result of a massive backstage fight at Universal Studios. Apparently, things got so heated that it almost came to blows.
While the breakup was happening, because it was happening on tour, and you know, we got into this big fight at the what is that venue at the Universal in the back? What is that called? What is that venue called? You remember that? What that venue is called? Universal Studios in the back? The amphitheater, yeah, but what is it? Is it Universal Amphitheater? Okay. Well, yeah, we got into this big fight at the amphitheater.
When you say fight, was it like a fist fight? Like y'all just had enough at that point?
Yeah, I mean, it was like right up into that point. It was like right up into the point to where we was about to be fist fighting, and you know, people had to break us up, and you know, we had to finish the show that night though.
Apparently, things got messy on tour. When Little Fizz hooked up with a girl Omarion had his eyes on. Needless to say, Omarion wasn't exactly thrilled, and this little romance definitely contributed to the band's downfall. But wait, there's more. The drama didn't stop there. The guys were also having issues with their management and wanted to renegotiate their contracts. They all agreed on a new manager, but then Omarion decided to go rogue and stick with the old one. This disagreement further poisoned the well and left everyone feeling bitter. As if things couldn't get any juicier, Omarion then went and spilled all the group's dirty laundry to their management, including the whole Little Fizzy mystery girl situation, and bam, B2K imploded. But hold on, because this drama keeps coming. Years later, Little Fizz decided to date April Jones, who just happens to be Omarion's ex, and the mother of his kids. Is this guy trying to win an award for the most awkward move ever? This whole situation just reignited the B2K feud and made things even more complicated. In the end, B2K's breakup was a messy cocktail of crossed lines, relationship drama, and a complete breakdown of trust. And if you think that was the end of it, well, you might be surprised to see some of this drama play out on reality TV. Nowhere near TV, the next scandal played out on Twitter, or X. The heart-stopping moment when Zayn Malik, the heartthrob of One Direction, left the band. That one sent shockwaves through the entire fandom. One day, Zayn Malik is all smiles, singing his heart out with One Direction. The next, he's dropping a bombshell on fans, announcing he's ditching the band. It was like a punch to the gut for Directioners. Everyone was whispering about stress and anxiety, but let's be real, we all know there was a lot more going on behind the scenes. Now that drama surrounding Zayn's exit kept everyone talking for months. Initially, he said something about wanting a normal life. But let's be real, who believes that? Much later, Zayn spills the tea about how One Direction seemed to have more than one direction.
Yeah, I think I'd known for a minute. There was a lot of, look, I don't want to go into too much detail, but there was a lot of politics going on.
Zayn Malik is getting honest about why he wanted to leave One Direction. In his first interview in 6 years, the former boy band member sat down with Alex Cooper for the Call Her Daddy podcast and opened up about why he chose to be the first one to step away from the group in 2015 and go solo.
Certain people were doing certain things, certain people didn't want to sign contracts. So I knew something was happening. So I just got ahead of the curve. If I'm being honest with you, I was like, I'm just going to get out of here. I think this is done. And I just seen it. And I completely selfishly wanted to be the first person to go and make my own record. If I'm being completely honest with you, I was like, I'm gonna jump the gun here for the first time. I'm a passive dude, but when it comes to my music and my business, I'm serious about it, and I'm competitive. So I wanted to be the first to go and do my own thing. That was the reason. And then there was obviously underlying issues like within our friendships too. We'd been together every day for 5 years, and we got sick of each other, if we're being completely honest. So we were close, you know. We'd done crazy things with each other, and that nobody else in the world will ever understand or have them experiences that we've shared with each other. And I look back on it now in a much fonder light than I would have, you know, as I just left.
And Zayn leaving the group didn't seem to be enough drama, cause Zayn clearly wasn't content with just leaving the band. He had to get into some Twitter beef with a couple of his former bandmates too. Can you imagine that? It all started when Zayn posted a photo with Naughty Boy, a producer, and Lewis took it as a personal attack. Words were exchanged, insults were thrown, and it was a total mess. Zayn even called out Lewis for being bitchy and said he needed to get a life. It was a total drama fest that had the fans glued to their screens, waiting for the next round of insults. Things have calmed down a bit since then, but it seems like the drama never really goes away. In 2022, Liam Payne threw some major shade at Zayn on Logan Paul's podcast. Talk about stirring up the pot. It's like this fan base is cursed with never-ending drama. From financial mishaps to performance controversies, these scandals showed that even the brightest stars can have their share of drama. I mean, these heartthrobs sold millions of albums and had fans going crazy with packed concerts and their merchandise flying off the shelves. It was boy band fever, but the next time you hear a catchy pop song, remember the boy band era that paved the way for it all and the gray side of the golden era of boy bands.